To the Newbie Real Estate Investor Podcast. I'm Jonathan Boyle with my co-host Joey Chan.
Hey guys, we got some great news for you guys.
Yeah, so we just actually partnered with the Results Only Mentorship Program. Hit us up if you want more information. And today we have special guest Ela Londono. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you guys. Appreciate you guys bringing me on.
Hey Ella, welcome. Good to see you again. The last time I saw you was at a Jason Urishi event. Probably, I don't remember how long ago, probably about a year and a half or 2 years ago.
Yes.
Right? It's been a while. Tell the audience a little bit about what you did before real estate and how you kind of got into real estate.
Ooh, I like this question. So, prior to real estate, where was I? So, I did the typical route. I went to college. I graduated with a business degree. But while I was in college, I was very interested in real estate. So I started kind of dabbling in. I bought my first property 2016. So I think I was a sophomore in college. And then I started, kind of hanging around with Flip and NJ guys here in Jersey. Started going to sheriff sales with them and, just kind of learning a little bit more in real estate, but definitely just part-time. So I was just kind of doing that throughout college, and I was working corporate as well while I was in college. So I was trying to figure everything out. And, I landed a corporate job and I absolutely hated it. So I hated being in an office. I hated, doing the whole 9 to 5. I was working in Manhattan actually. And I hated the commute because I lived in Edison and I did the whole commute thing. After working there for a couple months, I said, you know what, let me not do this anymore and let me just dive in fully into real estate. And then that was it. So I started kind of after I graduated fully and I got out of corporate, I told myself that I was going to, invest heavily into this and that, eventually obviously the return would be there. So I got my license, my real estate license. I started buying properties, started doing short sales, started buying properties at the sheriff's sale, just learning everything that I could. And, one thing leads to another. I started growing my team and, I'm very grateful now for where I'm at. I have a pretty nice team here in Jersey, and we, do business, here in Jersey and also North Carolina. So currently we're wholesaling. We have rentals, we do flips, and JVs as well. So we've done a couple of JVs with a couple of people here in Jersey and in North Carolina. So that's where I started and kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm honestly just looking to grow. One thing that I haven't done in the past, right, is put myself out there a lot, right? And I think that's one of the things that both of you guys do actually from what I see on Facebook. And I want to kind of just help out a lot more people that are, trying to get into the business, trying to scale their business or whatever they're trying to do. I'm really just trying to kind of help anybody out there, especially in the Jersey market. Because there's people that say there's no deals, but there's so many deals out there. It's crazy. Is crazy.
Definitely. Whenever people are saying that there's nothing out there, it's just people aren't looking deep enough. Like even some some wholesalers, and they may have bad deals per se, but deals aren't just sitting there usually. You have to create them out of something.
Exactly. Yeah, and the standard of like the 70% ARV, it's workable, right? But there's so much more that you can do, around it, right? So it's just a matter of educating a wholesaler, or educating a flipper, or educating whoever is out there trying to buy a deal or to even be a part of a deal on how to get it done. And the more that, we're all educated together, right, the more deals that we can do, because there's a heck of a lot of deals out there, a heck of a lot of deals.
There definitely is. Yesterday we went to see a deal. The day before that, we went to see a deal. We've got offers in on a bunch of deals. So there's definitely deals. We ran into other investors that are looking at deals as well. But kind of going back to you, Ella, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, a little bit about your team and kind of what you focus on, right? I know you're kind of a big-time wholesaler, if you will. How did that evolution happen? How did you get into kind of like the whole wholesaling space? Why did you decide this is what I want to do?
Yes.
No, I'm asking a lot of questions.
Good question. So I think I forget what month of 2018, but month of 2018, I think I had like 10 rehabs going on.
Wow.
10 rehabs going on here in Jersey, in different parts of Jersey. And I had hard money, I had private money, I had all types of money out there. Realized that, just having real rehabs going on right now where you have to pay out people, you have to, pay out mortgage, you have to pay taxes, you have to have a whole bunch of holding costs. I found myself in a situation that I had zero cash flow, absolutely zero cash flow. Kind of took a step back and got out of that position. Obviously, things worked out very well. I mean, 10 rehabs, 30 grand off each rehab is pretty decent. Got out of that situation. I told myself, okay, how can I manage a business where there's cash flow? Not only is there monthly cash flow, but there's obviously, opportunities to buy assets, right? So right now, the business model that I have is, for every 5 wholesale deals that we do, we're buying an asset. And we're primarily focusing on, buying an asset as a property versus, flips or anything like that. We'll still do flips here and there, but our main goal is to buy rental properties just so that we can obviously, grow our net worth within the company. And at the same time, have that cash flow going on. So right now we're in a position that, we have cash flow from rentals and we also have cash flow from wholesaling. Pretty nice, right? The grand scheme of things, it's beautiful, to, make 30, 40 grand off of a flip. But, if it takes 6 months to get that done, what's going on within those 6 months, especially if you have overhead expenses, payroll that you have to take care of and things like that to get you to your next deal. So, the way I look at wholesaling, it's obviously amazing. It's great. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of people that are trying to get into the business. It's kind of like the right step, right? That, educates you, you go through a whole transaction, sometimes maybe you JV with somebody that's doing a lot of deals and they walk you through it. But at the same time, it's still a business, right? It's still a business and you have to figure out, do I want to, focus on doing this while I, figure out my cash flow, or do I want to, jump into it, build a business model and at the same time build my cash flow out? Because there's always hiccups, right? You can, as a one-man show, you can only do, XYZ wholesale deals a year, right? But then you're putting yourself in a position that you have to, put a lot of grunt work into the process. So I love it. It's great. It's definitely, it's taking time to get to where we're at right now. We focus primarily on off-market deals. We're directly cold calling homeowners. We have cold callers out in the Philippines. So we have basically most of our business is built off of VAs. We're in the process of, we're doing that right now here in New Jersey and North Carolina, but we want to really kind of go along the East Coast. Because as you guys know, right, here in Jersey, it's super hard to manage tenants. So, we have a couple of rentals here, but we really want to try to expand and have more rentals along, like the East, state laws are a little bit more flexible on the landlord side. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's kind of like the ultimate goal.
Cool. I think we're pretty similar, right? In terms of goals, we kind of do the same thing. We do maybe like 3 to 5 fix and flip / wholesales. And then we also acquire 1 rental property. I think this year we kind of changed it up a little bit. We started acquiring more rental properties. So our goal is 50 rental not properties, but 50 rental units added onto our existing portfolio. Nice. So that's our goal this year. And I'm not talking about like an apartment complex where you can do it in one shot. I'm talking about like 2 to 4 units or 6 or something like that. Yeah. So how many people do you have on your team? And what does it look like?
Yes, so that's a good question. So right now, our main goal is, to do off-market, cold calling, and that's how we source most of our deals. So we have roughly about 20-something people in the Philippines, and then here in Jersey, it's myself, my brother, and then my sister. So it's the 3 of us. And what my sister does is that she manages the whole operations. I manage, the acquisition side, so negotiation, sales, underwriting the deals. And then my brother, he focuses on if we're wholesaling it on the dispo side. If we're doing the rehab, he's managing the project. If we're doing, a rental, he's managing, the rehab and bringing on tenants and managing the project management, just in general. But yeah, that's kind of like the overall look of it. We're probably at 30, including the 3 of us here. But that's what it takes to really try to grow a real estate business if you're looking to wholesale, right? Because primarily we're wholesaling. And that's actually a question that I ask a lot of people, right? Some people say, hey, I want to, quit my 9 to 5 and jump into real estate. And I let them know, like, hey, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. Right. You have to have a strategy, right? And if you don't have that 9 to 5 income, you have to figure out how to have consistent income coming in. So you can either obviously wholesale, which is nice, or you can start growing a team to then bring you deals as well out of that team. So it's a mix of things, right? Really having a strategy on how you want to approach things.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I didn't realize you had that many people on your team. My goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So with that many,
no, I said I didn't know how intricate it was.
Yeah. So we have a pretty, it's a process, right? So we have like kind of like an assembly line that you could say, right? So we have, the marketing department that's reaching out to the townships, getting lists, right? Whether it's a taxing list, whether it's a, code violation list, they're constantly, just grabbing that data and then, typing it out. I'm sure you guys have gotten data from the township and, sometimes in a PDF or sometimes it's in an Excel file, which is nice.
Yes.
So we have the marketing team that's really just kind of grabbing that information and then, grabbing phone numbers. And then we have the lead generation team, which is they're cold calling those phone numbers, reaching out to homeowners and kind of just filtering out the leads. And then we have acquisitions, which is where I kind of, focus on the most. And that's basically getting the deals under contract. So it's reaching out to the qualified homeowners and figuring out what value add we can bring to the table. Underwriting the deals, making sure that we get them at a decent price, locking them up, and then getting it ready over to then, whether it's dispo, project management, or, whatever, happens on that side. But yeah, that's, we have kind of like our little departments.
That's amazing. How did you start like acquiring these people? Like, how did you hire all these people? Like, how do you know I gotta hire, this guy and this lady, and so how did that come about?
That's a good question. So I guess I kind of got ideas from everybody that I was working with. Mm-hmm. So for example, with the Flip NJ guys, they had VAs that were manually doing everything for them in the Philippines. I think it was in the Philippines. I'm actually not sure from where. To get the data for share sales, right?
Yeah.
So then I started thinking about, okay, I could start really outsourcing. Then I started working with Louis Leyva at Culture Estate, and he was huge on prospecting, cold calling, just getting as many deals that way. And I looked at it as more of an opportunity to scale it versus to do it myself. So I think 2017 was when I was with Louis. And that's when I got my first employee from the Philippines, 2017. And I just kind of had him cold calling. And, he'd basically book me on appointments, and I go to the appointments, and, eventually, it kind of led to one thing to another. And then I said, I need somebody to help me manage the transactions. And, I hired somebody that kind of had that. Louis really taught me that, because he had, somebody in the Philippines as well that managed his short sales. I said, well, I was giving her my deals, and then I got super, loaded with deals that, he said, hey, why don't you try to hire somebody for yourself? And walk me through the process. And, I learned how to do that. And then, I kind of freed up my time, and then I hired another cold caller. And then, next thing I knew, I had a whole bunch of projects going on, and I told my brother, I said, hey, you want to join? And then he kind of joined, and he helped me, he'd go running to the building department, pulling permits, picking up, whatever we needed from Home Depot. And next thing you know, it honestly just kind of evolutionized.
He became he became the project manager, basically.
Exactly.
It's kind of like my role in our company. I'm kind of like the guy going to the building department, hiring contractors, even though I'm a contractor myself, but I'm more like the general contractor. Mm-hmm. So it kind of, I kind of feel what he's doing.
It kind of eventually kind of just like spiraled into, the company, I guess you could say, right? And obviously, I didn't do it alone. Like, it was, my team definitely kind of helped out. And just kind of getting the, the mentorship of, following the people that are in the business right now and seeing what they're doing. And, not just one person, but 2-3 people that I followed. And, it led me to where I'm at right now. But yeah, I mean, it takes time, right? I mean, we were in 2021. I started 2016 technically. So it doesn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. But if you're strategic about how you approach things, it's just a matter of time before things kind of unveil, and it works.
Your story is fairly similar to mine, except that you focused a lot more on wholesaling, and now I'm actually transitioning to do that as well. So no, this is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the biggest hiccup for me, not that it was a huge hiccup, but in the sense of why I started doing wholesaling is because I would grab, we would grab a wholesale check versus a flipper's check. And then we would say, how much time did we, invest into this check versus this check? And then we realized that, the wholesaling check took less time, and, the profit margins were there, that were there, right? So we can just figure out how to scale this part. It would just make sense. And that was just because on our end, we were, newbies in flipping, right? So it took a lot more to make that money than for somebody that's more experienced in flipping.
No, it makes sense. That's actually kind of the same realization Joey and I got when we started doing some renovations. Like some, for example, like with COVID and everything, two of our net lead properties, we barely made anything. And, we put up a lot of time, especially Joey, put a lot more time, money and energy into it just to get little to no return.
Yeah.
So, makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember that happened to us too. We had a couple of properties right during COVID. Oh my God. And we listed 2 properties March 16th. Yeah, so that was like literally COVID season.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think on between both properties, we ended up netting, I don't even remember, it was like barely 20 grand. And I'm like, okay, we're doing it wrong. We're definitely doing it wrong. But then, I now looking at it right now, we sold 2 properties that we should have sold for way more if we would have maybe waited out the market. But honestly, you didn't know what was going to happen. So I was willing to kind of like take that, not L, because it wasn't an L, we still made some profit. But if we would have waited a little bit more, we probably would have netted a little bit more. But that's just part of it.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what happened to us as well, right? If we would have waited probably an extra month, I think we would have probably made an extra like $10,000 to $15,000-$20,000 more on each deal.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you can't predict the future. So it happened the way it happened.
Yeah,
Yeah. So talking about that, do you track your KPIs, and what kind of KPIs do you track?
That's a good question. So yes, we track a lot of our KPIs on marketing more than anything, just because that's where we invest most of our money, right? Mm-hmm. So, some of the KPIs we'll track is how many leads are we getting per cold caller. Our cold calling team is our biggest team. There's a total of 10 agents in our cold calling team. So we make sure that obviously our return is there. So we track how many leads per agent we're getting, the cost of per lead per agent we're getting, and then on the acquisition side, how much does it cost for us to get a contract? And obviously, you guys know that, not everything that goes in our contract closes. Yes. So we also track how many contracts actually close, right? So those are our biggest KPIs on the marketing side that we track. Now, when it comes down to flipping and rehabbing, we actually don't track too many KPIs, just because we're not, doing too many rehabs at once. So we really just try to kind of, basically manage the project and have a main contractor that's managing things. And then, they run their own thing. We have a good idea of what things are going to cost us, but we don't have a huge tracking on those flips.
On that.
But our main thing is basically managing our marketing, because marketing is a huge expense, and we're investing heavily on people, time, data, and we want to make sure that the return is there on those type of deals.
Can I ask you, what for a cold caller, how many calls or how many dials does that person have to make before you get something, let's say, under contract?
That's a good question. So I'll kind of break it down like this. Typically, let's say a cold caller that's experienced, that went through our training, and is working with us for already a month, right? Because that's, their learning curve is always there in the beginning. So let's say they've already been working with us for a month, they know our process, they're good, right? Typically, that type of person is going to bring anywhere between 2 to 3 leads a day. And 2 to 3 leads are leads that are pretty good, they're qualified, right? And then it takes roughly an acquisition about 50 leads to close a contract.
So as far as those 2 or 3 leads, how many calls does that usually equate to?
In regards to like follow-up or the cold caller is actually calling?
Yeah, the cold caller actually calling.
So they're calling in one day, 8 hours. We use Zencom. So we actually Zencom doesn't track how many dials it's going out, because the way that Zencom works is that as a team, it counts how many dials the team is doing, right?
Okay.
Not an
In total.
individual person, correct. But typically one individual person on Zencom, and that's why I always tell people, if you want to grow your team, I would say Zenco is probably your best answer. If you just want 1 or 2 people, maybe Mojo or Call Tools would be better. But on Zenco, you work as a team, right? So the more people you have on your team, the more dials it could do. But typically, for a cold caller in our team, they're typically about contacting roughly about 300 people, and they're actually speaking to about 1/3 of those people, and then about from 1/3 of those people, they're getting 2 to 3 leads, right? Roughly. It's hard to do it as an individual just because Zencall tracks it as a team versus an individual person. But roughly 300 contacts, 300 contacts, roughly about 100 people that they're actually speaking to. Out of those 100 people, roughly about 2 to 3 leads a day. That's a good quality lead. And then roughly about 50-ish leads it takes for one of our acquisitions people to get a contract. Okay. And then once we have the contract, roughly about 80% of those contracts are actually closing.
Oh, wow. That's really good.
Yeah.
Pretty good percentage.
So I had to, I noticed you mentioned something about training. Do you train them yourself, or is there like what do you do for training for these virtual assistants?
That's a good question. So for training, we have a really pretty planned out training that we have for them. So we use something called Trainio. Trainio is an online platform, very similar to, I know like a lot of people have courses, right? So like it's very similar to like, somebody that has a course on Kajabi or Teachable or anything like that. But Trainio is a little bit more company driven. So what we have, every time that we have somebody come in, we just put them through a training course. And then depending on what position they're in, the training could be 3 days, it could be a week, could be 2 weeks, depending on what they have. For acquisitions, we have basically like a 12-week program, right? We could say where 2 weeks they're really intensively learning about real estate and the basics of it. And then after that, they get on the phones, X, Y, and Z. But we have I think that's been our biggest, and I would say that anybody in, that's watching this that wants to grow their team, that's where you want to focus, right? You want to focus on building your training, because anybody can hire anybody and waste money, right? Because and that happened to me in the beginning, right? I had no process, and the first cold caller that I brought in, thankfully, he had a background on cold calling, and he was cold calling for a real estate agent prior. But then, when we started growing, our team, that was our biggest issue. We didn't have a specific process on how we did things. And it wasn't until, I started kind of diving in more into, the book traction, into scaling up those type of books, I realized that I really needed to develop and spend more time on, a training platform that have basically a repeated process on how we could train multiple people at once. And if things didn't work out, it was okay, because, nobody in my team was directly training them one-on-one. It was actually a program that was training them. Training, I think, is like $99 a month. Okay. Super worth it. Super, super worth it. I think you can train up to 25 people with $99 a month, which I think is a steal. Just create your business out of it. So we have a cold calling university. We have an acquisitions university. We have a marketing university. And we call them university just because it's kind of like a fun name of naming it. But yes, so I think that the secret to, scaling is really having your process in place and really investing heavily into your process, and making sure that everybody in your company knows exactly, how to approach not every single situation, but let's say 90% of the situations that they come by, in order for you to actually scale it, right? And that's one of the things that I invested, a lot in the beginning. And even to this day, I'm always consistently adding different things onto the training platform. And it's just a matter of growing it so that you can bring, if you want to have a cold caller, that you can put them through a training process. And once they're done with that, they know exactly what needs to happen. And if they don't, then that means that, one, you hire the wrong person, or two, they're just, you're probably gonna have to let them go. But yeah, it's Trainio for anybody that's watching it. So Trainio.
Okay, so on Trainio, did you create your own classes, or was it something you just looked up like cold calling and you just put them into that platform on Trainio?
Good question. So it's a mix of both, right? When I started, I used to just kind of make videos and upload them to Google Drive, and then I would share that Google Drive and give it to them. But it evolutionized to now like a nice training platform. But I kind of just make videos about, our script, how the script should be said, how it needs to flow, the importance, what we need to, our systems, right? What systems are we using? We use Zillow a lot. So we basically make sure that, before they submit a lead to our team, that the seller is not asking for, $1 million, and on Zillow, it's, a estimate of 150,000, because you get that. A lot of sellers in Irvington or Newark will say, I want $1 million, but in reality, that's not a realistic lead for us. So we train them on Zillow and how to check that stuff. And, it's just videos of us going through, whether it's myself or one of our team leads, just going through Zillow, explaining to them what they need to look for. And then the same thing on the script, us going through live scripts, also pre-recorded calls of our cold callers before with sellers, right? So they know what they need to sound like. And yeah, a mix of everything. Motivational videos too. Those are important. Cold calling is not fun, so motivation videos is important for them. But yeah, so I honestly just try to put anything in there that I would need. For example, I put myself in a situation that if I knew zero about cold calling, about, real estate, what do I need to learn so that I can teach somebody else, and then they can go through the process.
Okay, makes sense.
That's amazing. A question. You have I'm not sure what it's called, a mentorship or a coaching program.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing with it, and how someone would be able to join or get involved in that?
Yes. So I'm actually, so it's not mine. It's actually, I was reached out by one of the mentors that I worked with previously to see if I wanted to kind of coach. That coaching program is with Real Advisors. I actually have no idea on the pricing, so you guys would probably have to go online. But basically, it's pretty cool because we teach people from all over the world. Well, actually all over the world. We have a student from UK right now. On the basics of wholesaling, right? I think that wholesaling is, if you can learn wholesaling, once again, it's like the step into real estate. And we really just kind of walk people through, the process, what they need to do, how it's done, if they have any transactions issues, which, come often, and nobody talks about transactions issues, right? Liens, how to negotiate that stuff. I'm doing live training with them, so typically I meet with them Wednesdays and Fridays, but there's different coaches, not just myself, other coaches that have been in the business for a good amount of time and that have closed a good amount of deals, so we can give you guys, anybody that's going through the program, feedback on how you should approach a certain situation, in a similar way of how we approach our business, right? If we go through a hiccup, what needs to happen? But yeah, so it's Real Advisors. I believe they're based out of Florida. I think that they're actually fairly virtual now. But yeah, so I work with them and I just train and coach. I love, that's one of the things that I learned that I like to do is coaching and training. And that's probably why, my company grew to where it's at right now, because of honestly just wanting to teach. I didn't even think that was, something that I like doing, but it is apparently.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that happened to, at least for me, right? I had no intention of ever actually teaching or anything like that. And now we're also in a mentorship program ourselves.
Nice.
We're also, I guess we're in a similar situation. We're also coaches, like you. And then obviously we have the podcast. It's been going on for a year and a half now, something like that. Yeah. So, it's been pretty successful. We've had some great guests on, like yourself, of course. So let me ask you this: roughly how many? Because I understand it changes every time, every month. Roughly how many deals are you doing per month? Roughly, you said you did North Carolina and New Jersey, right?
Yes.
If you can break that down, how many deals you do in each area per month, roughly?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So it really, obviously, it all depends, right, on the month and what's going on, and there's always fluctuations. Our goal is this year. Our goal is to close 100 deals between New Jersey and North Carolina, and that could also be JVs. It could be rentals. It could be a mix of everything. But right now we're consistently doing anywhere from 8 to 10 deals between New Jersey and North Carolina. I think North Carolina, we're actually closing more deals in North Carolina just because it's so much easier, and I can kind of give you guys my idea on why it's easier, because the ARV is typically $150,000 or less. So people are coming to the table with actual cash, versus in New Jersey that ARV is, 300, 400,000, and people are coming in with hard money. So I think it's a little bit harder in my opinion because of it. But then our average deal size is a lot bigger in New Jersey than it is in North Carolina because of that as well. So it's more consistent in North Carolina. But your profit margins are a little bit less, but it's less consistent here in Jersey, but our profit margins are a little bit bigger. So it's kind of like a mix of things, right? But yeah, so our goal this year is going to be to close, hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers, I believe that we can make it happen, but 100 deals is our number, our target goal.
Wow, that's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Going back to that, would you say it's about like half, or like?
I guess I'd have to run a KPI on that to really figure that out. But I would probably say that if we're talking about revenue, I would probably say that Jersey, I would say maybe 60-40, in Jersey 60. Now we're talking about deals, number of deals closed. I would say that probably 60-40, where we're at 60 with North Carolina. So roughly, right? I'd really have to look into it more to figure that out. But I just know that we close more deals in North Carolina. I see that all.
No problem. Yeah, that's something. The reason I was curious is because it's something I kind of figured, right? Without knowing what it actually is, right? Because it always seems like it's much easier to do it outside of New Jersey, because that's what a lot of people have told me, right? But I've only really done deals in New Jersey. I did the only one deal I did outside of New Jersey, I did in Texas, all virtual. Cool. So, so I've only known like the difficult deals in New Jersey. I don't know anything else.
Yeah, no, and that's what a lot of people like. We do coachings for a lot of students in different parts of the country. And, they always want to get into Jersey because, the profit margins are better, in my opinion. But, the likelihood of you closing a deal, in 30 days, right, when you start off, I think is harder, because you have to go through, not only is the ARV really high, right? And I'm talking about Central North Jersey. Probably South Jersey is a little bit different. But when we're talking about ARVs that are higher, you're talking about, one, potentially people that are closing with hard money, or two, it takes a lot more to close a deal, and you're going to want to make a higher profit margin. So you want to kind of have that cushion. So it's harder to find that specific buyer, right? Another thing is COs, right? COs are a living hell. So you have to, worry about, the building department. You have to worry about, are things, getting transferred correctly? If the property was gutted, was it gutted the right way? Did they pull permits? And, sometimes you can kind of get away with it in certain townships, and sometimes you can't. So, there's always an extra gatekeeper. Attorneys, another thing, and some attorneys are very difficult to work with. Some of them are very easy to work with, but it's just another gatekeeper that you have to go through to get a deal closed. Not that it's impossible, it's very possible. We do it consistently, and obviously a lot of people do it consistently, but you're gonna go through more hurdles to get a deal closed. So it's just a matter of, kind of looking at things and seeing, do I want to, go through more to have a higher profit margin, or do I want to go through less to have a lower profit margin? And that's up to the person. That's what I say.
Yeah, I think everybody's different. So yeah, it depends on their tolerance and what they want to do. Do you have any books or like podcasts or anything that you can recommend to the newbies?
Yes. So I would say if you're trying to get into real estate, don't worry about scaling so fast. Don't worry. I know that I'm probably talking about crazy things right now, but remember that, this is 2021, and I'm talking about this, what is that, 5 years into being in the business. Honestly, the best thing that you could do starting off is read mindset books. The book, The Magic of Thinking Big. I forget who the author is. I think it's David Schwartz. I'm not sure if it is. I think it is, yeah. The Magic of Thinking Big, Rich Dad Poor Dad, those books that are, even though they seem big, I read them to this day. Like I always like to go to back into a refresher and read them. But those two books are, it's in Atomic Habits, right? Those 3 books, Think and Grow Rich. I'm sorry, actually 4 books, Think and Grow Rich, The Magic of Thinking Big, Atomic Habits, and Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you focus on reading those books and really religiously focus on those books, one thing is going to lead to another thing, to another thing, and to another thing. And you don't have to build a company. You can, get into multifamily. You can get into, wholesaling a loan. You can get into, flipping a loan. It's, you create your own avenue on what you want to do. And it's just a matter of being true to what you want out of this and going out there and making it happen, because there's no one way of doing it. There's an unlimited amount of ways, and you can create it whatever you want to do.
Makes sense. So, Ella, I have another question for you. What's the best piece of advice you've gotten, or the best piece of advice you give to someone who's getting started in real estate?
Getting started in real estate, probably don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. Just go and get it done. Just go figure it out. You can literally to this day, I'm learning, right? There's literally 30 million transactions, that you can close, and you still will learn something in every single transaction. So don't try to, learn everything and then go into it. Maybe go to YouTube University for a month and then go and try to get your first deal. But really, don't get stuck in the nuances of the business, because there's a lot of it. There's literally, I could probably name you 30 million different things that, that wouldn't even benefit you on your first deal, right? Because it probably won't even happen on your first deal. So just go through it. Try to absorb as much information in, let's say, a month, and then go and try to get it done, because it's about implementing it and then figuring it out along the way, because there's just no way you can figure everything and then go and do it. You have to do both. Learn and then implement. Learn and implement. Learn and implement.
Of course.
I love that. Yeah, we I think we do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we screw up a lot.
Yeah.
So we're always learning. Yeah. We're always trying to implement and things like that.
And have fun with it.
Yeah.
I think that so many people take it so serious.
I know.
You gotta just enjoy it. I like, you want to wake up and you want to, tell yourself, where do you want to be in a couple of years? And yes, have goals and have ambitions, but at the same time, enjoy every single day, because God knows, what can happen tomorrow.
Exactly. I definitely agree with you there. Yeah, that's kind of why I like taking quarterly vacations for 2-3 weeks at a time.
Yeah, that's actually something that I want to do. I want to start taking quarterly vacations. That would be nice. I think I'd probably just go once a year, but quarterly vacations would be nice.
Yeah, very nice. I haven't gone anywhere since 2019.
Well, you have 3 kids also, so it's just me and the fiance. We just grab and go.
Yeah, that's good. You just have to have fun with it. Life doesn't have to be so serious all the time. And I think that was one of my misconceptions too, coming into the business, that I had to be this, suited up person and go and get it done and take your real estate photo looking like this. And there's probably one going around of me doing that. But in reality, you can create whatever you want to create out of this. You can have fun with it. You can enjoy it. Enjoy the mistakes. You're gonna screw up. It's gonna happen. People are going to get upset. It's part of it. And enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Have fun with it.
Yeah, no, it's funny. One of my friends, in one of our Facebook chats, I guess because he's not used to New Jersey transactions, he's buying his own house right now. And he was just asking me, how do you deal with all these personalities? He said it a lot meaner, but how do you deal with all these personalities, and have the patience to do it? And I'm like, well, that's kind of the business.
Mm-hmm. It is a business, because, and especially in New Jersey, right? I'm telling you right now, in North Carolina, you probably have to talk to the seller and the title company. Actually, it's an attorney state, but honestly, the attorneys are really nice there. I don't know what they drink over there, but they drink. Uh-huh. But here in Jersey, it's you gotta go through. First of all, people here in Jersey sometimes are a little bit more rude. So you have to go through the rudeness of the seller. You have to go through sometimes, title companies, they're a little bit difficult to work with. Sometimes attorneys, they're difficult to work with. Then the building department, they're difficult to work with as well. So it's just,
sometimes the fire department too.
Yeah, the fire department. I forgot about that.
Permits.
Permits, all that stuff. So there is a lot of people that you have to go through. Don't let the different personalities get to you. In the beginning, I definitely did let it get to me, and I would fight back and, go crazy and do all this stuff, but it's just not going to get you anywhere. Just, figure out how to enjoy it, appreciate it, be grateful for it, and things are just going to work out versus you trying to fight it it's just not going to go anywhere. And I definitely paid my price for fighting it.
Yeah, for sure. I was kind of like that at the beginning. Also, I would get mad at everybody, and now I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Okay, next one. That's it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you, Ella, for being a part of the show. It really means a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. And if for anybody that wants to reach out to me, I'm on Instagram primarily, probably not Facebook, but if you want, you can go ahead and reach out to me there. And my Instagram is @it's Ela Londono.
Awesome. So perfect. I'll be sure to put that in the show notes, and take care, everyone.